Hey YouTube, Kira Qualia here, bringing you guys my Raizer Nova Grappler deck profile for standard format June 2018. This is the next deck in the line of the Q4 deck profiles that I wanted to bring you guys. Finished this deck along with Kagero around the same time, just pulled a good amount of it from my boxes I bought, and was definitely looking forward to this as well. I definitely love the Raizer series, and the fact that we got support for them in the first booster pack for Nova Grappler just made me all the more excited. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So to start off, for the grade 3s, I run 4 Perfect Raizer. This is your main grade 3 that you want to ride for. It has the most pressure in the Excel deck for sure for Nova Grapplers. When it attacks, you can counterblast 2 and stand 2 of your rear guards in the front row. So with Excel, you get additional rear guards in the front row, and the Excel circle even has a plus 10,000 boost that you can make use of. So being able to stand that means if your opponent gets a trigger, you still have the option of that big unit hitting for a number depending on what number that Nova Grappler unit is. And when it attack hits on Vanguard Circle Perfect Raizer, if you have a card with Raizer and its card name in your soul, you counter charge 1, and one of your units gets plus 5,000 until the end of the turn. So you do counterblast a lot with this deck as well. It's one thing to remember, especially with Perfect Raizer's effect. So that counter charge definitely does come in handy with that pressure hit. And most of the time, depending on where your opponent stands, they might let the Perfect Raizer attack hit if it's not as big as some of your rear guards, and then that counter charge just comes in handy so much more. But that plus 5,000 might be another reason for them to guard this attack. But once again, it all comes down to the preference of the player for sure. And I also run 3 Ashura Kaiser. Now, it is a Raizer deck. We just don't have as many Raizer cards in standard format, so you have to run majority Raizer and then just back up with some of the other ones. And Ashura Kaiser is definitely one of those units. On Vanguard, when your drive check reveals a grade 2 or greater, you stand one of your rear guards, and if the revealed card is grade 3 or greater, you counter blast 1, and that rear guard gets plus 10 until the end of the turn. So once again, good pressure for sure. With Ashura Kaiser, that's why I run 9 grade 3s total in the deck, just so you make sure you can drive check them more consistently if you have to ride this and not Perfect Raizer. If not, when you put it on the Excel circle and it gets the plus 10, it's still a 22k attack, which is a pretty big number for sure to hit against your opponent to rely on. And lastly, for the grade 3s, I run 2 Battle Door Fighter. You counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, choose one of your units for the battle that this unit attack during this turn. While your opponent calls Guardians from his or her hand, he or she must call 2 or more at the same time. Excuse me. So with this, it just adds for your opponent, for the guard for sure. What's great is, most of the time when you're going up against like some force decks with Excel, most of the time they only have to guard with the 10k to block the 12k against their 13k. So having to call the additional with this for sure definitely hinders a lot of their plans depending on what they wanted to call. And a Vanguard rear guard effect with this as well. When it attacks a Vanguard, if you have 3 or more rear guards, it gets plus 5,000 to the end of that battle, which is a trait that it shares with a lot of different units in the Nova Grappler Excel deck. And moving on to grade 2s, I run 4 high-powered Raizer Custom. When it's placed on Vanguard or rear guard, you may call a Battle Raizer from your soul to a rear in the same column as this unit. So you basically fill up your field pretty easily. That's why you got to run Battle Raizer as your starter. But being able to fill up your field with units definitely does help for all the other different Nova Grappler abilities you'll have as well, and just for pressure alone with the rear guards. And it also has, when an attack hits a Vanguard, you counterblast 1 and put a Battle Raizer from your rear into your soul, stand one of your other rear guards. So with that pressure, you're also setting up for Perfect Raizer during the next turn, since you do have to have a Battle Raizer in your soul, and just that pressure for stand early game definitely does help as well. And I also run 4 Burst Raizer. This one will definitely eat away at your Counterblast as well, which is when Perfect Raizer's effect does come in handy. When your Vanguard attacks, you Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, and stand this unit. If your opponent has 4 or more cards in his or her damage, it gets plus 3. So that plus 3 does come in handy when it wants to hit some other units on the field. But the restand just helps for the multiple. Since we don't have stand triggers as well in standard format, you want to rely on these stand powers as well to get that pressure off, especially if you have it on the Excel circle for those additional numbers. And lastly, for the grade 2s, 4 Iron Killer. When it attacks a Vanguard, if you have 3 or more rear guards, it gets +5 until the end of that battle. Just more pressure, like I said before. 14k, making sure it can hit the 13k powers of a lot of units in Force, for sure, like Royal Paladin and Kagero. So this unit definitely does come in handy. And moving on to the grade 1s, I run 4 Raizer Custom. With this one, you, once per turn, put a card from your hand into your soul. This unit can attack even if it's on your first turn, and it gets drive -1. So that pressure first turn definitely does come in handy going against your opponent. It doesn't get a drive, but having them, either guard or take the damage on the first turn means you can come back on the next turn and just be ready for that pressure that Nova Grappler can do. And when your other rear guard in the same column as this unit stands, you may stand this unit, making it for an additional very powerful booster unit as well. And I also run 4 Jet Raizer. When your other rear guard is placed, this unit gets +3,000 to the end of the turn. So when you're setting up for the turn for your Excel play, you just want to make sure you call this unit first, and then get that power up for all the other units you call. Definitely different from the other Jet Raizer we had, what I've noticed. And I also run 2 Trans Raizer. When it boosts, you can Soul Blast 2 and Countercharge 1. Or I think it's Countercharge 1. And if that attack targets a Vanguard, this unit gets +3,000 to the end of that battle. So the Soul Blast helps with your additional Countercharge, obviously, for Trans. Just 2, though. The situation doesn't come up as often that you can do this, because you do want to save your soul for stuff like Perfect Raizer, and if you even have that much soul to begin with. So remember that with this. And also 2 Death Army Guy to finish off the grade 1 lineup. It's just a 9k attacker. It doesn't have a shield, remember that, but most of the time with this 9k power, you're either going to be riding it or calling it to rear guard for boost. And then moving on to the grade 0s for your starter, obviously Battle Raizer. You need it for so many different effects in this deck, so having it as your starter just helps in that scenario. And also for triggers, I run 4 Cannonball. The front trigger, I feel front triggers are the best way to go for pressure with this deck. Just big numbers all around, since front triggers give +10 to all the units in the front row. So also 4 Turbo Raizers for those means as well. And then for the draw trigger, for Twin Blader, it's the Perfect Guard draw trigger, so definitely need to run that in the deck. And to finish up for the heals, 4 Wall Boy, just the only heal we have for standard, so pretty, standard as well. No pun intended there. And then just for the Excel markers, obviously the 8 that we have from the sets that came out to run with the deck. But yeah, that is it for the Raizer Nova Grappler deck profile for Standard. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Once again, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And until next time, Kira Qualia out.